The evening sun stretched its lazy fingers across the quaint neighborhood of Maple Grove, casting everything in a warm, golden hue. The tranquility here was something I treasured, like a rare and precious artifact. My small garden was a sanctuary, a cluster of carefully nurtured plants and a few wind chimes that sang softly in the breeze. Each note was a reminder of peace, a whisper of serenity amidst the humdrum of life. But across the neatly trimmed hedgerows and picture-perfect lawns, there lurked an energy that clashed sharply with that serenity, a force as persistent as it was petty. Her name was Karen, and she ruled the homeowners association with an iron fist wrapped in a pastel-colored cardigan. She was a presence, a constant in our lives, like the persistent tick of a clock that you could never quite tune out. Karen had an eye for details, an unerring radar for deviations from the norm. I'd always imagined her as a seagull, swooping down on anything that threatened the uniformity of the neighborhood. I never imagined, though, that her attention would fixate on my wind chimes. They were small, delicate things that chimed gently in the breeze, like a lullaby sung by the wind itself. The first indication of her displeasure came in the form of a note, slipped under my door like a curse. The paper was crisp, its words as sharp as her gaze, language as unyielding as a judge's verdict. Noise violation, it said. I could almost hear her voice in the clipped sentences. Every letter an echo of her disapproving glare from across the street. I read the note twice, then a third time, savoring the absurdity of it. A chuckle bubbled up. Unbidden. It was just like Karen to find fault in the music of nature. Her world was one of order, of silence interrupted only by the symphony of her own making. I could have taken the chimes down, silenced their gentle song. That would have been easy, but there was a quiet defiance in me, an unwillingness to bend to the whim of her dictatorship. So I left them. I let them sing. Days passed, each marked by the soft tinkling of my little orchestra and the occasional glimpse of Karen's silhouette, a sentinel behind lace curtains. I imagined her fuming, plotting her next move. Her first strike had failed to hit its mark. She would not give up easily. And then it happened. The day when the peace was shattered not by chimes, but by the shrill wail of sirens. Red and blue lights flickered through my front windows, painting my living room in chaotic strokes. My heart thumped a confused rhythm, a mix of fear and disbelief. From the safety of my doorway, I watched as officers stepped onto my lawn, their faces caught between duty and the absurdity of it all. The absurdity of being called upon to police the whispers of wind chimes. It was in that moment, standing on my porch with the sun setting behind me, that I saw her. Karen, standing with arms crossed, her expression a blend of vindication and stern satisfaction. And in that moment, a thought crystallized in my mind, clear and unyielding. This was her world, but I was not a guest here. I had no intention of moving quietly into the shadows. Just like the chimes, I would endure. The early morning light sifted through my kitchen window, casting shadows on the worn linoleum floor as I nursed my coffee. The aroma mingled with the soft, lingering chimes from the porch, a melodious reminder of my small defiance. Yesterday's confrontation with Karen had simmered overnight, a gentle rustle of unease that settled like dust over my thoughts. But I was resolute. Her vendetta against the chimes, overblown and absurd, would not dictate my mornings. The neighborhood newsletter arrived with its usual thud against the front door, a ritual of misinformation and minor grievances christened as community updates. There, in block letters, surrounded by clip art borders of daisies and obligatory quotes about the virtues of harmony, was a new section. Karen's decree, the importance of silence in community living. It was a manifesto of peace dressed in passive aggression, wrapped in the guise of neighborhood well-being. The irony was as thick as the summer air. Reading through her thinly veiled admonishments was like deciphering a code, each line laced with veiled threats and moral superiority, According to Karen, the wind, an ancient, unpredictable entity, was no longer welcome to dance with man-made creations. Her piece was peppered with citations from bylaws, each more obscure than the last. Like a scavenger hunt through legislative annals no one had bothered to read before her. The absurdity was almost amusing. Almost. The day unfolded with its usual rhythm, the clang of trash bins, the hum of lawnmowers, the mundane noises of suburban life, all of it now tinged with an undercurrent of Karen's self-righteous crusade. Her influence crept quietly, like ivy climbing an old stone wall, unnoticed until it choked out the light. By afternoon, I noticed the small white envelope tucked into the mailbox, its impersonal font declaring, "Notice of Violation." Inside, a formal reprimand from the HOA, citing a breach of noise ordinance, adorned with legal-sounding jargon and the thin paper cut of compliance. A warning shot, cloaked in bureaucracy but unmistakably Karen's doing. As I held the notice, the absurdity of it all crystallized. Wind chimes, a beacon of hostility in the guise of serenity. I imagined Karen, hunched over her keyboard, fingers poised like a maestro conducting an orchestra of control. The thought was almost comical. Almost. But beneath her pursuit of order was a desire for dominion, an insidious reach into lives not her own. I walked to the porch, letting the gentle breeze carry the chimes notes across the yard. A song of defiance, soft yet unwavering. A reminder that not all battles are fought with noise and fury. Some are waged in silence and resolve. The neighborhood watched, passive spectators in this unfolding theater. Eyes peeking through curtains, whispers carried on the wind. Karen's stories spread like wildfire, each retelling adding a layer of drama, a twist of fiction, the truth a forgotten casualty. As evening descended, the air was thick with anticipation, a collective inhalation before the storm. Karen's presence loomed large, a shadow cast by the setting sun. This was more than wind chimes or ordinances. It was the battle of wills, of quiet strength against overt dominance. The chimes sang softly against the night, a lullaby of resilience and enduring spirit. And beneath the stars, I waited. For what? I wasn't sure. Perhaps for the next act in Karen's play, or perhaps for the silence to settle in and become something else entirely. Only time would tell. The patrol car's taillights disappeared into the night like two fading embers. I stood on my porch, eyes following their retreat, until darkness swallowed them whole. The wind chimes, those incriminating little culprits, swayed gently beneath the porch eaves. They offered their delicate metallic whispers to the breeze, oblivious in their innocence. In the wake of her latest spectacle, Karen receded into her house with the satisfaction of a general who's claimed a small victory. I imagined her there, entrenched in her living room, probably cloaked in smug triumph. She had won a battle. But the war was far from over. Inside, I slumped into my armchair, its worn leather creaking a familiar welcome. The room hummed with the soft tick of the clock, each second a reminder of the time Karen had wasted. I reached for my notepad, its pages already littered with the saga of skirmishes. Each complaint, each call, and each petty grievance meticulously documented. It began as a need for self-preservation. Now, it was more. A quiet rebellion, inked in blue biro. A testament to patience, resilience, and the absurdity of suburban warfare. With each unwarranted complaint, Karen inadvertently provided more ammunition. Her pattern, predictable as the seasons, was etched into the lined paper like a map. It showed the way forward. I glanced towards the window, where shadows stretched across the lawn under the moonlight. A plan unfurled, subtle and undeniable, like the first breath of dawn. It was time to act, not with malice, but with precision, with understanding of the system she so eagerly manipulated. The next day, under the guise of routine, I gathered evidence. Photographs of her neglected yard, where weeds stretched lazily toward the sun, the paint chipping from her porch railing, blatant in its disregard for community standards she cherished so fiercely. I spent hours, days, weaving her infractions into a tapestry of quiet rebellion. And then, with deliberate calm, I presented my case to the HOA. The winds shifted, a subtle breeze at first. Karen's rulebook, her fortress of regulations, began to tremble under the weight of her own indiscretions. Each note, each photograph, was a gentle nudge against her carefully constructed facade. And the board listened, their expressions a blend of shock and realization. In the stillness of that room, our silent battle reached its crescendo. The quiet power of patience and truth rang louder than any chime. Karen, unprepared for the mirror held to her actions, found herself ensnared by her own web. There was no celebration, no words of triumph. As I returned home, the wind chimes sang a soft lullaby, their song as unchanged as ever. They'd been my allies, unwitting players in a game they didn't know existed. The quiet irony wasn't lost on me. Karen, whose life revolved around control, had unwittingly orchestrated her own downfall. The evening settled in with a serene sense of closure. The neighborhood, oblivious to the drama that had danced through its streets, carried on as always. I leaned back into my chair, the notepad now closed. A chapter ended. The wind chimes continued their gentle serenade, a testament to resilience, balance, and the unexpected harmony found in chaos. Sometimes, the loudest victories are those whispered by the wind. The afternoon sun had stretched the shadows of my porch across the lawn, casting a dappled shade that danced gently under the skeptical gaze of the neighborhood watch. The wind chimes, the infamous harbingers of this suburban saga, hung innocently, silent in the stillness. Their silvery notes awaited the breeze, much like the drama awaited resolution. Karen had escalated the trivial into the dramatic, her call to 911 over my chimes painting me as a nefarious noisemaker. The police, courteous yet bemused, had left with nothing more than a cursory glance and a shrug, yet the real storm brewed not in the weather, but in the legal papers now resting in my hands. A petition against the HOA's arbitrary enforcement of rules, bolstered by a thick stack of signatures from neighbors, now weary of her reign. The legal system, with its quiet yet relentless machinery, often felt like the opposite of Karen, unassuming, patient, and ultimately just. I had done my research, poring over bylaws and municipal codes, finding the chinks in the armor of her petty tyranny. The noise ordinance she invoked was as brittle as the autumn leaves that now littered the sidewalk. Decibels measured, thresholds defined. My chimes, even in full gust, barely registered on the scale of violation. Irony painted our neighborhood in broad strokes. Karen's self-declared vigilance had inadvertently united the community. Neighbors who once nodded in passing now shared whispered conspiracies over coffee. The petition was a tapestry of grievances long stifled, knit together by a collective sigh of exasperation. We were, in a way, her unwitting opus, the crescendo of her own making. An envelope bearing the HOA's insignia landed in my mailbox, a portent as plain as the battleship gray it was wrapped in. Inside, a letter from the board, sterile and formal, acknowledged the receipt of my petition. Words like review and consideration dotted the page, promises woven into a fabric of bureaucratic patience. The irony was not lost on me, or the board, I suspected, that the very rules Karen wielded like a cudgel were now the ones that might sever her grip. Justice, I mused, was an old clock, ticking steadily, unhurried by the passions of those it judged. It was the wind that would move my chimes, not the whims of a misguided sentinel. I stood on my porch, the air crisp with the scent of change. The chimes began to stir, their melody a whisper of defiance. From the street, I caught Karen's eye. Her expression was a fortress, her lips thin as she crossed the pavement with a purpose only she knew. Her strategy, now unraveling, seemed to tighten her composure in defiance of the odds stacked against her. In that moment, poised between the past and what lay ahead, I felt an odd pang of empathy. She was caught in a web of her own weaving, a testament to the perils of control wielded without temperance. Yet, even now, I found my thoughts turning to the future, to a neighborhood where wind chimes could sing freely, their song a testament to the quiet rebellion that had brought us here. The board meeting loomed, a crucible of decision. Until then, I would wait. The chimes, those gentle heralds, would continue to sing softly in the breeze. The courtroom was colder than the bitter winds of January, yet the air buzzed with a quiet fervor. Karen sat, spine rigid, in the gallery's front row, her presence a blade of authority dulled by the recent unravelings. Her once ironclad hold over the neighborhood had been chipped away, piece by piece, as if time itself had weathered her resolve. The irony wasn't lost on me as I sat silently, a few rows behind, feeling more a spectator to justice than its wielder. Outside, the streets lay bathed in the soft glow of sunrise, each house a silent witness to the slow, simmering rebellion against Karen's reign. My wind chimes stirred gently with the whisper of a breeze, notes of rebellion that sang to the rhythm of freedom and quiet defiance. They were no longer just ornamental. They had become the anthem of our shared defiance. The judge, a tired yet fair-eyed woman, entered and commanded respect with a presence that made Karen flinch ever so slightly. Her composure was impeccable, but I could see the cracks beneath. Karen had called 911 over wind chimes, claiming they violated the noise ordinance. Her obsession with control had become her undoing. The community had rallied, each testimony weaving a tapestry of shared grievances, all small yet potent threads of discontent sewn into a declaration of emancipation from her tyranny. As the proceedings unfolded, I marveled at the theater of justice. Each argument against Karen was a brushstroke against a canvas of change, painting a future where her influence waned. Her power, once a monolith of intimidation and fear, now crumbled under the scrutiny of fairness and community spirit. Karen's eyes, once sharp and judgmental, now darted with uncertainty. The courtroom's fluorescent light seemed harsher today, revealing every line etched by years of orchestrated control. Her lone supporter, an equally disgruntled figure, sat beside her, their shared silence a testament to their dwindling authority. The irony was sweet, a gentle reminder that nature has its own justice, one that can't be called to order by a phone line. The wind chimes, those delicate harbingers of peace and resilience, had become our silent advocates. Their gentle jingle was a testament to the power of small, persistent acts of resistance. Karen had sought to silence them, but in doing so had amplified our collective voice. A gavel fell, its sound of finality echoing through the room, resonating with a justice both poetic and profound. The judgment was clear, a restoration of balance and order. Karen, removed from her pedestal, was left to witness a community reclaiming its harmony. Outside, the neighborhood felt different, lighter, as if a great weight had lifted. The wind chimes played their soft melody, a greeting to a new day, a new order. Karen, now just another resident, walked past me, her expression a mosaic of disbelief and resignation. Our eyes met, but no words were exchanged. None were needed. The drive home was quiet, yet each passing house whispered stories of resilience and newfound freedom. The neighborhood had been restored, not in grand gestures, but in the quiet, persistent resolve of its people. I stepped out, the gentle breeze greeting me, and the wind, chimes, danced once more. Their song, a simple, profound testament to the power of standing firm, of community, and the gentle strength of nature's justice.